All right, so as you can see, I've got, well, it's not going to be quite good enough, but I've got the shape of the bowl that I want to make, or kind of ladle-ish thing. But what I've realized is that while that looks nice, it's not going to be nearly thick enough. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring that point out about that far on either side, and so I'm just going to bring that down kind of to those points, and probably just let that be actually maybe a straight handle. Now I can, if I carve that as a straight handle, I can obviously go in later and add a little accent to it, make it a little bit more decorative, but I think I'm going to keep that as that right now. So let's get carving on this bad boy. Like I said, this is going to be a ladle or a scoop of some sort, something that I like to do. I've done a bowl before, and what I've always done is I've always curved right from the get-go down. But one, we're going to want a flat bottom so that this thing can sit like this, but I'd like to keep some thickness on the edge here. So if I can get a flat edge for these sides, that's what I want to do. I want to get a flat edge so that it's just a little bit of a different design. Maybe I can get a little bit more depth out of it, a little bit more volume on the inside. But I really like this. I'm hoping that this can stay throughout the bowl. I'm not really sure if it goes on the back, but I'm seeing that kind of stripe, so I guess we'll see. Let's see. Yeah, it looks like I'll have a nice stripe kind of all the way through. That should be really, really nice. Now, let me switch around to the other side. I think you'll be able to see better. Alright, let's keep on from this side. I think this is going to be better so that you can see a little bit better, I think. Yeah, now you can see the outline. Kind of see what I'm doing. Let's see here. Now, of course, with that, I actually want to turn this log, as you'll see that I have this to help stick that there. Now obviously it's not the best because I'm not on an even surface or even having a nice flat bottom on this log, but that's okay. It helps sometimes. I can get stuff in there, but usually what I like to do actually is just kind of come up. I'll cut at an angle at first and I'll bring it to the line. Of course, as I'm getting close to the line, I want to be careful to not cut too much, but now that it's kind of to the line there, I can come along. Oh, sounds like we got some rain coming on this little aluminum roof out here. Bring that even. I'm bringing that flat with that line. So now, try and do the front of that. Alright, that looks pretty good. I'll probably have to take a little bit more off there, but for now, it's not too bad. So I'm going to flip this bad boy around and kind of get it from the other side and get the other corner down. Pecan wood is tough, especially when you're cutting across the grain like that. So when you go to do kind of a sharp curve across the grain, it's more like actually chopping into a tree instead of carving, because that's basically what you're doing. Is you're chopping into a tree. This actually seems a little bit easier. This is not usually the way that I would do it. Usually I would go for a well, I'll probably go back to it, but usually I'd go just for this approach of cutting from the other side. Yeah, there we go. It's going slowly but surely. It's hard to do it this way for me because I can't see the line, and I definitely get nervous about missing that line, because if I miss it, then I cut off part of that bowl, and then it either becomes lopsided or I have to resize the entire circle to get it to match up. Now that is definitely going to be too thick, so what I want to do, and this will probably make it easier to get that other side as well, is I want to take off a little bit of the thickness at the end of this bowl. I'm just going to do this. There we go. That's looking a little bit better. This is already going to be a kind of flat bowl. So again, I don't want to take too much off, but I also don't want too much on, because if I make too much on or leave too much on, it gets harder to cut across like this. It gets harder, it just gets bulky and not as, to me, nice looking. So I'm going to take a little bit more off of that corner. So let's get that. Let's see if we can't get this the rest of the way to the line. Little by little. It's a little bit tough too, because as I have that rounded surface as I'm chopping, I'm fighting against it with my hand, but I can't fight entirely against that. But I'm also getting the rocking of the log, so it fights against me cutting it a little bit. That's a little bit better. You can get it wedged the right angle on the edge, that'll hold it nice and steady. Off the back half of this now. Again, probably going to come right up to that line, and then try and take a little extra off. So obviously I've got 2 lines there. I can tell that this is the one that follows all the way around, so I'm going to cut past that small line there and just go right up to that second darker line. Tried to make it darker on purpose, of course, to help me tell also which one was the one I wanted to follow. But basically all I did for that is I just found a large mug that kind of fit that circle, put it on top. It was a nice wide mouth mug. You know, it doesn't take much to get a good circle. You just find something about the right size, trace it on the wood, and then you got yourself a perfect circle. You can use a compass, of course, especially if you have a raw piece of wood. Woohoo! That is that. There's a tree house right there. That's that thing creaking. So, if you could hear that. But basically, if you got a blank and you just got a nice like square piece of wood, you use a compass and do whatever you want on there. But since I had already had a rough circle drawn out, I wanted to get something that I could just trace without having to try and find the exact center point. Now, of course, I found kind of center side to side so that I could draw a nice line for the center of that handle, but that's all. I didn't need to find exact center. And you know, as you get more used to it, I've heard some people say like, oh, you know, if you can't conceptualize a spoon or a bowl right out, you know, you'll never be that good. Well, I can't really conceptualize how everything's gonna go. Usually what I start out with is a basic idea, and for a long time I just did the simple cooking spoons. So it's a straight line, and then I kind of showed you last time, but basically instead of being a perfect rounded head, I take, let's say this is the log, I draw half a circle, I let the point come to this point, and then I draw the other part of the circle and take it up to the handle. And that just allows you to get into the corners. And I usually use that, whatever it is, template for most of the spoons. Now, as you chop into the wood and you find all the different grains and how it curves and stuff like that, you'll figure out different ways that you can use the wood. You'll get better at it. So, you know, if you're doing this and you're like, well, I'm just not good. The first spoon that I made a cooking spoon, and let's say this is the part where the actual spoon part was, and there's a divot there. It was bowed just like that backwards. It was unusable spoon. And it's not because it dried that way. I was using dry wood. I accidentally cut it that way. So I wasn't very good to begin with at all. In fact, I kind of stunk to begin with. If you want to give it a shot, just make several spoons. And as you get more practice, you'll get better at it. It's not that hard. Again, the hardest thing for me is just keeping a good bevel on my axe. That's the hardest thing. For me, at least. But just watch some YouTube videos, you'll be fine. And you don't need anything fancy. I know that I have a fancy axe. I have Gronsfors. You can look for, you know, all different kinds of greenwood forges, like, what is it, pinewood forge, robin wood. Lots of different people have axes. Jason Lonan, I think, is one of them. And they sell really nice handcrafted axes, usually cheaper than Gronsfors or Gronsfors, however you say it. Cheaper shipping on a lot of them because they are made in America. Or you can just start with the Fiskars. Fiskars works well. That's just the lawn company. They make lawn loppers. Start with that. That's what I started with, to just see if I was interested. You don't need anything fancy. I'm probably going to stop talking for a while now, so I'm not great at talking and chopping. So you just sit back, relax, and hopefully enjoy the process. fingers on that. And part of the reason why I don't like to get my fingers in front of the axe head or the blade. It's really easy to make a slip and chop into them or chop them off. Starting to rain now. I'm kind of on the edge here, so what I'm going to do is just scooch us over. Alright, I think we're good there. So you can see this is a little bit harder to get to. Obviously. Let's see. Alright, I'm going to try and get this pretty flat. Alright, that's pretty good. So now the big thing is we want to get this, the edge of this. Now this is obviously we'll see what happens there. We'll have to get this a uniform thickness. So I'm going to try and go around the edge. Alright, you can see it's starting to come together. Alright, so I want to leave a little bit of wiggle room because what's going to happen is that eventually I'm going to have to flatten out the top of this completely. There's just some little pits and stuff, but I want to leave a little wiggle room between those so that I can actually flatten that out without getting it all the way down. So I know it's not a ton of wiggle room right there, but that is just how the wood was there. So we'll see what happens. But I'm going to try and get this flat. And let's see. That is not quite it. I believe if I do this, that'll flatten that out some. No. So close. Alright, there we go. That's sitting much flatter. That's good. So I'm going to try and get this down a little bit as well. make sure that we're not going to get a tornado through here, though we never usually have, but that doesn't guarantee anything. There we are. So try and get this back down to a reasonable thickness. Again, we want it really the same shape. We want it as symmetrical as possible. So the more that we can do that, the better. I don't know if you can hear that treehouse creaking, but that's just the tin roof on the top of it, and there's some metal kind of grates as handrails around it. Yeah. So basically what I'm going to want to do is I want to take off the corners of this. I want this to be pretty rounded. And I'm going to have to take a good chunk of this handle off. Meaning, you know, I need to really thin it out, because otherwise what's going to happen is when I carve out the middle of this bowl, the handle will wind up being heavier than the bowl, and so then I'll get, you know, this kind of thing happening where the handle is weighing down the bowl. So that again a little bit more even. I'm getting dripped on currently quite a good bit right at the edge of this thing, so I'm going to scooch over just a little bit more. Alright. So, let's see about this. Alright, let's see. Nice. So now it's looking like that is that's not too bad. Okay, so now I really need to kind of take some off here, off of the corners, just because I want to round them out. I don't want it to be a nice rounded handle. see how that's sitting. It's not the best. Oh, that's probably about good. There we are. I think that'll be good. It's sitting a little bit high on this side, so I'm going to take it down just a little bit. Let's see. That looks about good. And then I think if we just kind of bring that in, maybe make that a little bit thinner there, and then yeah, I don't know. I think it'll be all right. It'll work out. So as you can see, it's gonna need a little bit of work. I'll have to smooth that out with a knife, but that's good.